it's very, very off the radar, very, very technical. I know, you just don't understand what this does. And as soon as you do, you'll switch everything.
Hello and welcome. So we've been about a month since we've done a video on this channel, and I just want to kind of catch you up on what's been happening on the Decred channel. And in particular, I want to look at one of the only proposal that's currently happening, which I believe is going to be massively contentious, and probably there's not been a proposal like this on Decred for some while. It's getting a lot of traction, both positive and negative. Probably the last time I'd seen this much kind of organization in the Decred community was when they wanted to reject dittos from his proposal, which obviously if you were following at that time was an absolute sham, and rightly so. I actually believe that this one is not a sham. I actually think that this one will add a lot of value to the Decred chain, but because we all get to vote, any stakeholders get to vote, obviously you need to make up your own mind, and that's the best bit about Decred. But I would definitely say, with this proposal in mind, try and look past the current price. So the current price is something like $300,000, which is a lot of money. But do your research before you wholeheartedly reject it or agree with it. Do your research, and I'll go through a few of the places where you can actually have a look at what this guy's been up to. And like I said before, I'm actually a supporter of this particular proposal. And I think it will add a lot of value to our project, to the Decred project. But once again, we've got voters, and in actual fact, it's good that you guys will get to vote, and we'll all get to vote and kind of have our say. We can all shout as loud as we want, and ultimately, the only thing that matters is where you put your money. Put your money where your mouth is, either vote yes or vote no. Before we get onto that, though, let's have a look at what's been happening on the Decred blockchain, see where we're currently at. So here's the Decred Block Explorer. So we're currently at 573,000 blocks. We currently have a price. Hold on. It keeps fluctuating. We've been through massive amounts of price fluctuation this week. We've kind of, I like to call it the summer sell-off, if you like. So at the beginning of the summer, you have this massive sell-off where everyone gets out ready to come back in September, and we've just kind of witnessed that. It did have a dramatic bounce, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. So the current price per the exchange rate is at $112 or it's about £81, I think. We've also had a massive contraction in the hash rate. Now, this was really interesting. During my last video, we kind of saw this happening. We saw the China sell-off, where basically China banned all of its miners, and it turned out that we had a good 50% of our miners sat over in China, which have now been redistributed. And you can see this is the point at which everything kind of got sold off, and we went down as low as 70. It was actually lower than that. It was 75 petahashes, which was really, really low. At its height, we were getting something like 400, it's actually 600 petahashes. And then before the massive sell-off, we were at something like 400 petahashes. So we saw this massive reduction of well over 50%. I would say it's closer to 75%. And then as soon as it got moved to its new location, which took about 2 weeks to move to its location, we're now currently up to this kind of 250, 200 petahashes area, which is obviously a really good point. And if you look at the attack calculators, we're currently sat at about $1 billion for a 1 hour attack. So I found that really interesting to see maybe how centralized the mining operations have already started to become. So hopefully they got distributed to all different kinds of parts of the world, and hopefully we'll see this kind of dynamic play out a little bit better for the decentralization of the project. Now, we are very lucky that we don't need as much hash power as Bitcoin or any of the other kind of Bitcoin protocols. So sitting at this kind of 200 petahash is actually really, really good, with nothing to worry about there. Obviously, when it got down to 70 petahashes, there was a couple of alarm bells ringing at that point. But looking at what was happening in the news with the miners getting banned in China, you can see that kind of played out, and it was quite good to see that not all of the miners actually got destroyed. They actually got redistributed, which was a really good thing. Other things of of value. So even though we had this massive pull down in the price of Decred, you'll notice that the price of a ticket is still well up there. So it's 188 Decred for a ticket. Current price in US dollars is $21,000. So the actual price is still massive, and we're still sat almost at 60% of all supply being staked. So currently, there's less than 50% of the circulating supply ready for purchase. And when you combine the 700,000 Decreds in Treasury, that obviously brings it a lot down. So out of the 13 million that's up for sale, you've probably got about 4 million coins in circulation that can be bought, and it's probably even a lot less than that. And I think that's pretty much everything I want to talk to you about here. But one thing I've noticed since we've had the price going up is the actual treasury amount has been going up as well. So we were sat at about 630 for a long time. And now we're kind of breaking through the last 2 months or last 3 months. We're actually breaking through this kind of barrier of 630. And now we're kind of up to 700,000. It'd be really cool to see over the next year if this can get up to 1 million DCR. It'll probably take close to 2 years, to be fair, maybe even 3. But it'd be interesting to see out of the supply that we've got remaining, if we can get this up to 1 million coins in the actual Decred treasury. Another thing that I want to look at is the price action, which I find really interesting. So obviously during the bull run, before the pull down, we got up to 180. It was 180 pounds per coin, very short period of time. And then what I wanted to see is how much it pulled back by and how it kind of stayed at that kind of resistance level. So if you remember, we came all the way from like £10 in November, all the way up to 180 in, April. And there was always going to be a pullback, but it was interesting to see where that pullback would land. And common consensus, a couple of the guys that I follow on Twitter said, once we go past this kind of all-time high from back here in 2018, this will become the new support. And I really wanted to see if that would play out. It hasn't quite played out that way, but it's not far off it. If you look at all the pullbacks we've had over the last 90 days, we've actually pulled back to this £69 mark 3 times now. So it'd be interesting to see if we get another pullback to this and whether it goes lower, or whether my suspicion is at the end of the summer, we actually start to find some new highs of 100, 120, maybe finishing Christmas at around 200. And that's all speculation, of course. This is not financial advice. But that's kind of my thought process at the moment, is this support is holding quite nicely. And this sort of £69 or £75 has become our new kind of actual price, if you like. So let's move on to this proposal that we're looking at. So the proposal we're looking at is from Dominic Frisby. Now, the last time we had this many comments, we've got 80 comments on this proposal. The last time we had this was for actually about well over a year ago for one of Checkmate's proposals, which got 75 comments. All other proposals, if you look at the approved proposals, normally get about 6 comments, 20 comments. They really don't get as much traction as this one. And I truly believe that this is purely because of the amount of money that's been asked for. Now, Dominic Frisby wrote a book called Daylight Robbery. I've read the book. It's absolutely fantastic. I love the book. And this is why I think this is so interesting, is because what's happening with money. Money is always seen as quite a boring subject. At school, it's been downplayed for years and years and years. But over the last few years, where we've seen so much money being printed, we've seen house prices go through the roof, where we've seen the invention of Bitcoin, people have become interested in money. The actual people wanting to learn about money has become massive. Now, you could say the same about taxes. People that want to learn about taxes is actually quite a small proportion. But once people understand about money, the next logical step is, how are we being stolen from? We know that house prices are well overvalued. We know that the current wages are well undervalued. We know that inflation is it's not right. You know, what's happening in inflation, the numbers that are coming out are just, they're not true, you know. So it's not long before people say, actually, in fact, I want to learn about what government does. I want to learn about how it works. Now, this is where this particular proposal comes into it. The actual book is about taxes. Daylight robbery, the actual title, refers to the window tax. In the book, he actually explains all this, and it refers to the window tax of England and Europe, and actually walks you through a lot of different scenarios about how tax works, how it's collected, different systems in place. I mean, it's really, really interesting. Now, you combine this with what Decred is doing, you combine this with what's happening in the space, and you've actually got a really, really cool narrative. The fact that this proposal will be funded by a decentralized treasury, which has had no influence from any outsiders, is actually a massive narrative. And there's a lot of scope here that says, you know, this is Decred's chance to shine at what it does best by promoting education, you know, by promoting something that actually matters. Now, whichever way you think about this, that's completely up to you, but I would definitely say read this proposal and look past the actual price. Once you've read the proposal, once you've read the comments and you've had your view and maybe ask a few questions as well, go and have a look at this guy, go and have a look at Dominic Frisby, see what he's up to. Now, the one thing I like about Dominic Frisby is he's a productive person. He actually is producing all the time. He's written books. He's got them onto Audible. He's done voiceovers for Audibles. You know, he's actually producing this stuff and he's putting it into the places that he wants it to be. He's going on interviews with well-known people in the space to talk about his product. You know, he's writing a weekly column for Money Week. You know, this is a very, very productive person. So, I mean, once again, if you don't like reading, you can obviously go to Amazon to buy his book. If you don't like reading, you can come to Audible, and it's an 8-hour Audible read. It's got his voiceover on, so it gives you the insight there to actually look at his or hear the quality of his work. And if you're not already an Audible member, you can get it for free as well. So, you know, it's a win-win. But take your time to look at the content. Take your time to actually understand what this book is about. It's worth it. Trust me. Well, don't trust me. Verify. Finally, if you're not 100% sure about that and you want to hear more about this actual proposal, Decred in Depth just did the live podcast with him, where he talks about the proposal and everything that's gone on. Do your research before this goes up for vote. Do your research. Make sure you do, because this, in my opinion, these opportunities do not come around very often. You know, and it's fine if we ultimately decide this is not for us. That's absolutely fine. You know, that's what the voters are for. We vote for it. We vote against it. But don't let this get away from you just because you haven't done your research, because you haven't actually found out about this guy. Do your research, spend a little bit of time on his content. And once again, if you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, he actually publishes a weekly vlog, if you like, from his Money Weekly articles. And they're brilliant, actually. And you can actually see the quality of this guy's intelligence. So once again, final thought from me, you know, read this stuff, do your research. If you're a voter, you know, don't just go in, don't say, hey, this is $300,000, this is way too much. Remember, this will actually be staged. So he actually has to produce this work. It's not like we're going to just give him 300,000. He actually has to produce this work and show that he's produced it. Remember, the Decred Treasury actually happens on milestones. So the milestone has to be produced first before the payout will happen. If that milestone doesn't get produced, the payout won't happen. You know, so we've come a long way since the Ditto days. You know, this is not going to go down the same way, but the potential here is massive. The other thing I want you to remember is the amount, 300,000 roughly works out, I think it was, it's either 3,000 Decred coins or it's 6,000 Decred coins. Hold on, let me just come into here and do the conversion, which I was working out is like half of one month's treasury input. It wasn't much more than that. So let's say Decred works out 2,600 Decred coins, you know, at the current value. It'd probably actually be less than that, because obviously the Decred treasury takes it on a 30-day average. I'm going to leave it there, but do your research, check this guy out, vote either which way, but don't do it on ignorance. Don't do it by not finding out what this guy's actually about, because once again, I think it could be a massive opportunity for the project to push those narratives that we all care about forward. Anyway, enough of my ramblings. Have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's very, very off the radar, very, very technical. I know, you just don't understand what this does. And as soon as you do, you'll switch everything.